Good evening, everybody. My name is Ken Plaga. I know many of you that are attending tonight's meeting. For those of you who don't, I am the Chief of Police for Meridian Township. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation. The forum is based on a conversation with community members on Meridian Township Police, how we police, and how the things that we've done in the future to move policing forward in some of the new innovative ways that we're going to try and communicate with the public and promote transparency. I'm going to share a few slides with you as we start. This is our mission statement. This mission statement has been in place for several years, and it was developed with employees and citizens of the township in a committee format. And as you look at that, this is the thing that guides the way we do our job every day, maintaining and building partnerships with our community, understanding cooperation and equality, protecting the rights of our community. Those are the things that we try to do on a daily basis. So looking at I want to talk a little bit about the makeup of our department. We're looking at the 2010, that's the most recent census. I know we have 2020 census coming up, but looking at the 2010 census information for Meridian Township, the demographics of our police department and the demographics of the town. We still have a ways to go to mirror the demographics of our community. That's our goal, is to have the police department of the community that we serve. But in the last 2 years, we've made great strides. Our 12 junior officers, 6 of those officers are either minorities or females. If you go to the next 12 officers in seniority that have been around for a little bit longer, there's only 1 out of 12. So we're making improvements. Do we have a ways to go? We do. However, I feel confident that we can get there. So tonight we're going to talk about several things: recruitment, retention, training, accreditation, community policing, and input from the community. After each one of these segments, we're going to have an opportunity for question and answer from the community. I would ask that you keep on topic of recruitment or training, accreditation during each segment, because at the end, during the community input, that's when we'll have the larger discussion on any of the items or things that you would like to bring forward. This is really the opportunity for us to receive input from our community members on where they'd like to see us go in the future, things they'd like to see us differently. And if you have something that you think we're doing well now, make sure you let us know so we don't change. First thing that we're going to talk about is recruitment and retention. Officer Megan Klein is with us tonight. She's one of our recruiting officers, and she's going to talk about some of the efforts that we utilize to try and bring employees into the department. I would share with you that in the last 4 months, we've had 3 officers leave the department that are leaving law enforcement because it's just not something that they choose to carry on. I'd like to let you know that we're currently authorized to have 41 police officers, and we currently have 36. For hiring, we used to get hundreds of applications. Now it's in the single digits at times. I would ask Officer Klein to share with you some of the things that we do to try to get those qualified candidates to come to Meridian Township. So Megan, if you're ready, why don't you go ahead and share with the folks what we're doing. You're muted, Megan.
Everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chief Plaga. My name is Officer Megan Klein. I've been with Meridian Township for about 3 years. I've been on the recruitment team for 1.5 years now. As Chief explained, I will be talking about recruitment here at Meridian Township, as well as our recruitment statement, our non-discrimination statement, our goals and our objectives of the recruitment process. So here at Meridian Township Police Department, we are dedicated to employing motivated, educated, and highly qualified applicants just to accomplish our mission to protecting the rights of the residents in our community. Our recruitment plan is designed with the intent to attract qualified candidates for each position. With that, we recruit quality candidates in accordance with the guidelines set forth in our policy manual. This is to develop a diverse pool of applicants and to create a diverse and multicultural workforce. So we are firmly committed to a non-discriminatory employment practices, and this is including providing a positive work environment that demonstrates respect for all employees. We have 3 goals to our recruitment plan. Goal number 1 is to attract quality candidates who will further our mission and goals. Our second goal is to be proactive in recruiting qualified candidates from all races, sexes, and ethnicities. And goal number 3 is to recruit and hire cadets who may develop into future officers. Just like our goals, we have 3 main objectives for our recruiting plan. Objective number 1 is to organize a recruiting team here. So we have identified motivated officers who represent Meridian Township in a positive light. And this keeps our team diverse and to expand our team as well. So right now we have 4 officers involved in the recruiting team, including myself. Our second objective is that we advertise our job openings to a diverse basis of candidates. So we do this by attending job fairs that are directed toward minorities, such as the Noble Career Fair. Noble stands for the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. This is typically hosted at MSU or Wayne State University. We attended the Noble Career Fair back in April of this year at Wayne State, and we try to attend every year that it is hosted. We also try and develop relationships with local organizations such as the chapter of the NABCJ, which is the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice, and the Alpha Sigma fraternity chapter at MSU. The Alpha Sigma Phi fraternity chapter is a nationally recognized honor society for criminal justice students, and they are students who share a commitment to learning and improving the criminal justice field. So we also advertise internship opportunities through local colleges and universities. Right now we have one intern with us. He's a MSU senior majoring in criminal justice. We also consider sponsorships through Mid-Mich Police Academy for candidates as well. We are currently sponsoring one female candidate who started out here as a cadet with us. And we also advertise through social media as well. So Facebook, as well as MCOLS, the website, we post our job openings on those as well. Our third objective is to offer incentives to our cadets who would like to further their careers with Meridian Township as police officers. This can be done as well through, local career fairs and advertising cadet job openings through MSU and LCC. Our process is always a continuous effort, even when there's no positions available, which is rare. We continue to maintain an ongoing dialogue with community groups and organizations to promote careers in law enforcement. We've really been getting creative with recruiting since COVID, since there has been no job fairs to attend. So just the other day, we had an officer who was speaking with a witness at an incident that occurred, and that person expressed interest in law enforcement, and they showed all the qualities to becoming a great police officer, and we got their contact info, and now that person is being considered as a cadet for Meridian Township. Just recently, police academies have beginning to start up again, and we will go recruit at the academies. We go throughout the state of Michigan to look for police officers who will help us meet our goals of our recruitment plan. We have recruited all over, so we've recruited at Ferris State University, Delta College, Oakland University, Wayne State, Flint, and then obviously MSU and LCC. So I'll wrap up and just state that Meridian Township Police Department is always dedicated to looking for and employing highly qualified applicants that will keep our community and residents safe. So that's my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and got some insight on our recruiting and hiring process. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. One of the things that we also have experienced over time is when it comes to retention is when we can identify local candidates, people from the greater Lansing area, to bring them on as officers. A lot of times we'll get folks from outside of the area and from great distances. And the trend is to work a few years and then work your way back towards your hometown. So we've been successful in that. I see now that we do have at least one question. So we'll take some recruitment and retention questions now. Our moderator will unmute you and allow you to speak.
Hello, this is Barbara O'Kelly from Wood Hill Condo Association. I'm wondering if Megan could be a little more specific in the characteristics. I really appreciate that you're diversifying the force, but are there, when you have a choice of candidates, are there personal characteristics that you look for example, when you said that witness was an ideal candidate? Thank you.
So I'm familiar with that situation where the young lady who was an MSU student witnessed a crime, and the officer was just really impressed with the detail and observation that she was able to provide, the fact that she kept calm in a relatively stressful situation when the incident was occurring, and the fact that she was already a criminal justice major. So those are the kind of characteristics that we do look for. Also, we look for those folks that are willing to be caring, compassionate, and be involved and help others. Often you'll see people that are witnessing a situation where they're not willing to step in or offer a helping hand, and that's really paramount to being a great police officer, especially here in Meridian Township. During these short staffing times, we've actually I've addressed some of the officers and said, hey, at the briefings, and saying, listen, we're not just going to fill bodies. We're going to seek those folks that meet the qualifications and the standards that Meridian Township has. And we have pretty high standards for police officers, and everyone is very supportive of that. They'd rather go short than just put bodies in uniforms and put them on the street. So that's, I hope that answers your question, Mark.
Yes, thank you.
So in the question and answer section, there's a part in there about, do high schools or encourage high school students to consider law enforcement? So we have, not only do we have a adult citizens academy where folks can come and learn a little bit more about what it's like to be a police officer here in Meridian Township, but we have a youth academy that targets high school aged students, where they come through the program and are exposed to law enforcement. We actually, Officer Colby Cassidy works for us as a graduate from Hazel High School and a graduate from the Meridian Township Youth Academy. So I hope that does answer that question for you. And can we share how diverse the force is presently? I'll share my screen again, and I'll show you the current status of our department. So this is the current, on the right-hand side, this is the current makeup of our department. And then this is the demographics of Meridian Township, according to the 2010 census. And we know that that's going to be adjusted once 2020 census comes out. This does not currently count Sierra Alvarado, who is in the police academy, or any of the other candidates we're currently considering to hire. These are just current employees of the police department. All right. Well, not seeing any other hands in the attendee section. Oh, there is one more question to answer. Okay. So now that recreational marijuana is legal, will this change some of the requirements to join the force? The use of marijuana is not an automatic disqualifier, but it is still a federal crime. So it is not an acceptable. One of the things that you do when you're a police officer is take an oath. You take an oath to abide by the Constitution of the United States and the state of Michigan, and you follow those laws. So at this time, if you're a current marijuana user, that is not an option. One of the things we do, several of the folks that are in the attendees group are our neighborhood leaders. And we reach out to them and ask them if they know somebody interested in law enforcement to kind of refer them over to us. The community is the best recruiter that we could possibly have. If somebody is encouraging young men and women to enter the field of law enforcement, that makes our job that much easier to find qualified candidates. So we're going to move on and talk about training, what training consists of for to become a law enforcement officer and what it looks like here at Meridian Township Police Department. So I don't know if many of you know, but to become a police officer in the state of Michigan, you have to attend one of the state certified academies in the state of Michigan. That's over 700 initial hours of training for a police officer to go through just to get out of the police academy. Well, once you get out of the police academy and successfully graduate and pass your state licensing exam and are selected by Meridian Township, you come to a comprehensive field training program. And that's over 644 hours of training assisted by a field training officer. It's a several step program where as you're going through the program, you take on more and more responsibilities of a police officer, and one of our field training officers is there to guide you. The last step before you're solo performing is a shadow phase where the training officer is in plain clothes, and the new officer is out there taking calls all by themselves and handling things, and they're assessed for a 2-week period to make sure that they're able to function by themselves in a safe capacity. We do monthly evaluations of officers after they're off solo performing, and along with checkout rides where field training officers or supervisors ride with them, just to ensure that they're still doing things the appropriate way, following policies and procedures, and providing the service to the level that we've found fit here at Meridian Township. So you've made it through the field training program, and you've been an officer for over a year now, and you become a tenured officer. So what does that mean as far as training for a Meridian Township police officer? Well, we mandate 30 hours of in-service training. That means everybody in this department receives a minimum of 30 hours of training in various topics that are covered. Legal update is a 4-hour block of that. Defensive tactics, where officers learn how to defend themselves and take people into custody in a safe and ethical manner. That's 3 hours annually. Firearms proficiency training and qualification is a regular quarterly training that they receive. Bias-based training, how to police with a non-bias methods, that is 2 hours every other year. Fair and impartial policing is also a class that they attend every 2 years. That's to make sure that people aren't using their implicit biases or opinions to influence the way they do their jobs. We also conduct hate crimes against cultural awareness, cultural diversity, and we do other trainings in association with Michigan State University to ensure that people have emotional intelligence and understand the way they act or the reasons that they act or behave can influence the outcome of a situation. One of the big things that a lot of folks are asking about is de-escalation training. Not only do we provide de-escalation training to our officers on a regular basis, but we have two Lieutenant Grillo and Sergeant Ed Bessinen have attended extensive training so that they are qualified to provide that training to our in-house in-service training right here at the department, so we don't have to send officers off-site or out of town to receive that type of training. We partner with community mental health to make sure that we provide mental health training and how to react and provide best services to people who are in a mental emotional crisis. That partnership, along with partnerships with protective services, so that we provide adequate, not just youth protective services, but vulnerable adults as well. We have a very comprehensive training program, which then is supplemented by external training where we send officers off to be subject matter experts. Our use of force instructors receive multiple trainings from outside to make sure that we're still following best practices as identified by not just the police community, but also the legal community. We do an annual use of force training and review so that officers understand the situations and where force has been applied. And it's wonderful to say that out of, in 2019, we had 18,552 calls for service. That means there were contacts with citizens 18,500 times. And during all those calls, which include arrests, domestic violence, shoplifting, breaking and entering, 39 incidences, there was force used. Now, what do we mean when we say force is used? If an officer unholsters a taser and points it at a subject and instructs them to get on the ground so that they can be handcuffed, that is a use of force. No one has actually applied a taser. No one has actually made physical contact with somebody other than handcuffing, but we still count each and every one of those instances as a use of force so that we can track them and see if there is something, one, an officer is using more force than the average officer on the department. If we had one officer using 30 of those 39 uses of force, that would be a red flag for us and indicate that there's an issue and we need to take action. And to also make sure that during those, we do the review to make sure that they're using force or applying it in a safe and ethical and legal manner. So those are, that's really some of the training that we receive. And if anybody has any questions about police training, right now would be a great time for us to take questions. So if you're in the attendees, use the raise hand feature, or if you are uncomfortable speaking, go ahead and you can type your question in the question and answer section of the down at the bottom of your screen. All right. Well, I am not seeing any questions on training. So let's move on to state accreditation. State accredited, we're very proud that we're an accredited agency. We're one of just a handful of agencies in the state of Michigan that are accredited and the only accredited agency in the mid-Michigan area. Lieutenant Rick Grillo is our services division commander. He's in charge of our detectives and our property management, oversees our training supervisor, and also is our accreditation manager. So I'll let Lieutenant Grillo give an explanation of what training, or I'm sorry, what accreditation is and what it means to the community.
Thank you very much, Chief. Accreditation is a voluntary adoption of standards that are consistent with the best practices in law enforcement. A lot of times when you hear about accreditation, you think of hospitals and colleges. Those types of professions usually have some type of accreditation associated with them. Well, law enforcement's no different. We also have accreditation. And back in 2004, we were recognized nationally by I guess the main accreditation branch in the United States, which is called CALEA. And so we had recognition from them. In 2008, we came up for reaccreditation, and they had kind of priced themselves out of the market. It was too expensive for us to do it any longer. So we weren't able to do it. So we kind of floated around for a few years. We didn't have any other options until 2016. In 2016, the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police came up with their own accrediting body. It's called the MLEAC, which is the Michigan Law Enforcement Accreditation Commission. Now, the commission is made up of law enforcement executives as well as just members of the public. And what they do is they come up with the standards that represent the best practices in law enforcement. The Michigan model was kind of modeled after the New Jersey's model. And it's kind of interesting because, again, it's not just law enforcement people saying these are what we think is best. They also go out to the community, and they have community leaders that are part of this commission as well, helping them write the standards. So when we started this process, it was February of 2019, and Chief came to me and said, we're going to become accredited, and you're the manager. And I said, okay, how much time do I have? He said, you got about 9 months or so. So we really had to get moving on this quickly. And proud to say that we were able to get the job done. In December of 2019, we had our on-site review, which there were 2 members of the accrediting body came and reviewed what we had done. When we were finally issued our accreditation status in 2020 February, there were a total of 24 agencies, and as Chief said, we were the first and the only currently in the Mid-Michigan area to become accredited. Since then, there are now 24 agencies that are accredited, and there are another 40 agencies that are in the process. So I'm going to show everybody what this process looked like for us. So this is the standards manual that is put out by the MACP. These are all the standards that we had to show that we were compliant with. All right, there are 108 standards right now, and it's everything from administrative functions such as the way our written orders are filled out, to media relations, and then we get into the personnel function, operations function, which is pretty much kind of our day-to-day operations. It goes over use of force, it goes over arrests, it goes over vehicle pursuits. The investigative function, how we investigate our crimes and how we keep track of our evidence. Right down to when we make an arrest, how we process our arrestees, and how we have a temporary holding detention center here that we use, and we have certain measures we have to take to make sure we're in compliance. And when I say compliance, what they require is we have written directives that are very specific to the standards that they have created. Not only do we have to have our written directives, so our policies and procedures, we also have to prove that we are following all of these standards. So I'll take you into what our assessment actually looks like. We keep track of it all electronically. And so I'll just take you through one of our standards. Each standard, each of the 108 standards has anywhere from 5 to 15 bullet points that we have to be able to, that has to be in our policies, but also we have to prove. So for instance, this is just the way our written orders are typed out, what they have to, the way they have to look. So we have 8 bullet points here that we have to show that our written directives are approving. So the person or persons that have the authority to issue, modify, repeal, it goes into our written directive, and it specifically says the chief of police has the authority. Then we have to go into here and show our proof. This is how we prove it, right? I have to do this for, there's approximately 1,000 bullet points that we had to prove. So that is kind of what accreditation looks like. Now, what did we get out of this? There were several new programs and updates to our policies that came out of this. I can say I looked at some policies that had been around for 15 years that hadn't been touched, that needed to be updated, had bad information in them. So it really made us go through our old policies and make sure that they were up to date. But we also developed a few new programs as a result of accreditation. Our early warning system is kind of an interesting concept. We keep track of, in a spreadsheet, we keep track of our officers to make sure that if there is some kind of a problem going on and we haven't, I guess, identified it yet, we review our early warning system to see if this officer may need some special attention, if they need additional training on something. So if we will keep track of uses of force, sick time used, citizens complaints, internal investigations, and myself and the assistant chief go through these once every few months. And if we find an officer has significantly more uses of force, then we will maybe send them to additional training or take some other actions just to make sure that we can correct that before it actually becomes a major problem. A critical incident stress debrief policy, which essentially tells us if an officer goes through something that would be traumatic to them, they go to a scene where it's extremely traumatic, that we can get them some type of help through our CARES program to make sure that they don't need anything for their own personal mental health. We never had a foot pursuit policy before. And if you look at it statistically, the majority of the time, or a good portion of the time when an officer is injured, it's as a result, or a citizen is injured, it's as a result of a foot pursuit. So this really gave us kind of parameters for our officers to work within to make sure that if they're in a foot pursuit, these are the rules and this is how you're going to do it. We updated our workplace harassment policy, which hadn't been touched in a while, and we have more meaningful reviews of our high liability type things. So what does it do? It kind of makes us look at our old policies, bring them up to modern times. It makes us accountable to our policies too, because we can't just write it down and say, yeah, we got these policies, it's great. We have to actually prove that we are following our policies and doing what we say we're supposed to do. Also put our practices in line with the best practices in law enforcement. And lastly, it gave us an opportunity to have all of our things looked at by an impartial third party, that being the accreditation board, so that we knew that we were doing things correctly and we had a third party partially looking at that. What doesn't it do? It definitely doesn't make us mistake free. We still will make mistakes. That is just the way of life. We're human beings, so we are going to make mistakes, but it has given us better guidelines to provide the best service possible. It doesn't cover every single scenario that could come up. There's still going to be things that come up that we just have never dealt with in the past, but it does help us become better. So looks like maybe we have a few questions. Chief, would you like me to handle the questions or would you like to handle them?
So the questions that are there, I think we will answer them, but we'll do them during the community input, the community piece, because those questions are, not on the accreditation topic, or they do fall under training, but we'll cover those questions in the community input portion, because I think they'll spur on additional questions or comments from the participating members. Does anybody have a question in regards to the accreditation process, or what it does for our department, or what doesn't it do? Well, I do want to thank Lieutenant Grillo. He was one of the driving forces in getting us accredited, but honestly, it was the entire department, officers, civilian staff, all the way up through the assistant chief. There was a heavy lift there. And the one thing that the lieutenant didn't share was that as we go through, they've added new standards to the accreditation process, and every 3 years we have an on-site assessment by that third-party impartial assessors, and we have to maintain those proofs that he was showing you. And so accreditation isn't get it done, get your gold star and move on. It's an ongoing process that you have to, because best practices change. What was acceptable in the past may not be the best practice now. So I thank Lieutenant Grillo and really the entire staff for accepting the responsibility of getting this done and then getting it done so quickly. One of the things he didn't mention was we now have added a piece to our website, and it is a transparency page in the township website. I'm going to share my screen a little bit, and it could answer some questions for some people. I might be stealing somebody's thunder here, but I apologize. So this is the township website. And if you go to the police section of the township website, there's a new transparency tab there. You click on that transparency tab, and what we've done is utilizing that same software we use for accreditation, all of our policies and procedures, except for maybe about 10. And some of those policies that we haven't published are those policies that have tactical operations in them. We're not going to publish how we respond to a bank alarm. That's just silly. We don't, because these are open to the public. But I will tell you, our use of force policy is out there. On non-lethal weapons, our foot pursuit policy is out there. Those high liability policies that people may be interested in, what's in place in Meridian Township, what's the guiding language, they're out there for folks to see and take a look at and comment on. our training plan. If you want to know what our officers are trained to, this is our minimum training. And this document outlines what our officers are going to be trained to, how much time is going to be spent, how they're evaluated. And this is a living document also that changes. This document really has a 2020 to 2022, but as best practices change, so does this training plan. One of the other things is a citizen feedback page where citizens can click on it and they can make comments. It's funny, you've got a thumbs up. Those are the thank yous. Some of those folks give us, we get a lot of very nice comments, but we also get some feedback that's not so positive. And really that's what can make us better, is that feedback where we've done something that has caused somebody to have some distress in their life. And they want to share that with us. We can look into it and see if we can not cause that distress again. Freedom of information, how to request information from our organization through the Freedom of Information Act. The One Mind campaign, which is something that we've just started. The lieutenant is spearheaded to help officers deal with those people affected by mental illness. There's only one other agency in the state of Michigan, I believe right now, that's involved in that besides ourselves and have taken the pledge. And we're working towards meeting that goal. If you want to know what the accreditation standards are, you can come here and see the accreditation standards and read for yourself what they hold us accountable to. And then also our report from our last onsite, which was in December of 2019, you can see where we did well and where we needed to do some work. And then the township's annual report, so as an overall township. One of our neighborhood leaders, Cecilia Kramer, when we have quarterly neighborhood leader meetings, and I'm probably stealing Brad's thunder. The assistant chief was going to show this, but we have a map that shows all of the neighborhoods that have officers assigned to it. So that transparency page is there for people to access information. And if they can't get the information from the page, my information and emails here, the assistant chief is here, the detective sergeant's here, and so is the lieutenant for staff services division is here. So it gives you the ability to contact the people that can get the information or the answers that you need. So if we don't have any questions about accreditation, I think we will move on to community policing. And that is Assistant Chief Brad Bach. Brad and I have been here, both here 25 years. Brad will be in December, and has seen this department grow and change for the better. So Assistant Chief Bach, please. Maybe you can't hear us.
Thank you, Chief. Sorry, I had to move my cursor. First off, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. I know it's the weather's great and everybody would probably rather be outside enjoying it. I want to thank our community leaders for showing up tonight and taking part in this, and also board members. I'm going to talk a little bit about our community policing philosophy. Chief Plaga has taken it and ran with it after Chief Hall left. And what I mean by that is we're budgeted for 41 sworn. Every officer in our department has a list of neighborhoods. And I'll give you some statistics. We share Meridian Township along with Williamstown Township. We also do community policing there. There's roughly 160 neighborhoods. And out of those 160 neighborhoods, we have roughly 140 community leaders throughout those neighborhoods. So you take that and you divide that with our 41 officers. Monthly, our officers need to reach out to every neighborhood leader by email and touch base with them, see if they need anything. And that's not just that once a month. If there's a crime that occurs in their neighborhood, if there's an issue resulting in their neighborhood, that community police officer will reach out by email, by phone, or in person and touch base with them. And then once quarterly, we expect the officer to make face-to-face contact. That can be, they either need to make a phone call and or show up in person. So, and that's a requirement. And we run reports. We have a great reporting system, and I get that printout. We know which officers have it, and they get gentle reminders on making contact with the community leaders. So with that being said, we participate in quarterly meetings with our neighborhoods. The chief brought that up earlier. We also participate every year in National Night Out. That's the first Tuesday in August. Unfortunately, this year, there's probably not going to be a National Night Out due to the the COVID. But again, we try to maintain these meetings through Zoom or however we can, and the officers continue to go into their neighborhoods and make sure that we stay on top of any issues that our neighborhoods have or concerns. The chief showed you the map. That's a new that we just rolled out in the last month. That is a vital tool. We get so many phone calls from residents saying, I don't know who my neighborhood leader is. You can click on the map that the chief showed. It'll bring up the officer's name. It'll bring up the sergeant's name, and it gives you their email, their phone number, and everything so you can get in touch with them. And that's a valuable tool that we're using more and more. And that's been rolled out here in the last month or so. We also have, along the same lines, the crime mapping that is on the same page. If you look at our website, right underneath that is our crime mapping. The crime mapping is valuable because any resident can click on that crime mapping and you can zero right in on your address or on your street, and it's downloaded right from our records management system. And it's not just Meridian Township, Lansing, East Lansing, and all the surrounding areas utilize that crime mapping. So you can go on there and there's a bunch of different filters that you can set. You can set parameters. If you want to know how many people have been broken into, how many cars, how many MDOPs have happened in your neighborhood, you can set those for dates and you can set those for specific areas. So I encourage everybody to go out on our website. We have great websites, great social media. Oh, Chief pulled it up there. So as you can see, as he scrolls in, if there's a number associated with it, that means there's multiple. So you see 6 there. That means there's been 6 of those crimes that have occurred. If you click on the mask just to the left of that, that means that there is a break-in, a burglary, and it'll give you the information over on the right-hand column. It's a great tool. It's underutilized. People call up all the time and say, something happened in my neighborhood that I want to know about. One of the first things we can direct them to is the crime mapping. And again, that's updated. And it's a great tool, not only for us, but for anybody that lives in the surrounding areas or the neighborhoods. And as you can see, it scrolls all the way out into Lansing and all the surrounding areas. And that's only a reportable criminal offense. That doesn't include any of our civil calls or anything like that. So yeah, that's a great tool. Again, on our website, right underneath that will be our traffic safety concerns. Probably the chief, Lieutenant Grillo, our road sergeants, myself, our #1 complaint is traffic. Somebody's speeding in my neighborhood. You know, there's somebody driving a certain type of vehicle that every morning at 8 a.m. is coming up and down my street. You can go on our website, fill this out. We give it to our traffic safety sergeant. He'll make what we call a directed patrol. That's entered into our computer system. So every day the officers have to check the directed patrol, and then they have to document in their dailies that they did this. It's a useful tool. It's helped out immensely. And while I'm talking about the traffic concerns, we currently have 2 smart trailers, which are speed trailers, and 2 smart signs. And people see these smart signs and they often call and say, it's in a bad location, it won't pick up speed, or that sign's not pointing the right direction. We're doing surveys with those signs. Those signs are made, they're intended to track the number of cars that pass through that area, high traffic volume times, the highest speed, the lowest speed. So they're tracking a lot of information for us. So I believe, and the chief might correct me, I believe we ordered 2 more of those for next year's budget, but I'm not 100% sure. So that's another tool that we use. But again, it's community feedback. Our community tells us what we need, and we try to make sure that we, we take care of those everybody's issues. Just using our social media platforms. We're out on social media a lot. We have a great Facebook page, all the other platforms. We have Mugshot Mondays. We do a lot of other activities on social media, and we make sure that we use that to get information out to the public. Another program that we've implemented is a vulnerable adult and child. It's a great program. If you have a child that has needs, or a older parent or somebody that lives with you, you can bring them in here. We'll take a photograph of them. We'll fingerprint them. Excuse me. And a lot of times, if they wander off or something, we already have the picture. We can pull it right up on our in-car computers, and that's instant, right on, real time. We can go out and help locate the missing person or the endangered person. On that same line, we're very proud of another program that Officer Chrissy Scatia and Christy Shading, who is the administrative assistant to the chief, they came up with our Senior Watch program. The Senior Watch program has been very successful. There's 3 different really ways that we can utilize the Senior Watch program. One is a check-in. A check-in is that we will actually drive to that residence and make contact with that residence if they need. Another one is an elderly call. We'll just have our cadets pick up the phone at certain times, call to make sure everything's okay. The time is set up with the person in need. For some reason, if they're not around at that time, at that point, we will send an officer over to do a welfare check. It's a great tool. The other one is just a senior watch, and just, we just, they don't need as much attention, but again, we still go out and make contact when needed. It's a great program. We've had a lot of success, and it continues to grow. We're pretty excited about that. Some of our other programs that Chief talked about earlier were our Citizen and Youth Academies. Our Citizens Academy for the adults runs 10 weeks, 1 night a week for 10 weeks. They get to do everything from crime prevention, use of force. They get a segment on our special response team. They get firearms. The K9 unit comes in and talks. They get to go down to our dispatch center. The list, I could go on for another 5 or 10 minutes, but there's a lot of hands-on experience, and we get a lot of positive feedback, and usually that fills up pretty quick. The Youth Academy, that runs 7 weeks. We get a pretty good, kids from Academies, kids from Hazlitt, and we get a pretty good turnout for that. And again, it's all hands-on. They get to be one-on-one with the officers, and it really is a way for the officers to kind of break down that barrier and spend time with the kids. And it helps. And it's just like our DARE officers. Other departments have gotten rid of DARE over the years. Our chief has made it a priority to have our DARE officers in the school. People don't realize that that's our #1 form probably of community policing, because we're starting with these kids at a young age. Officer Scatia and Officer Brian Leroy are our 2 DARE officers. They're in the schools every day. And they're our first, they know the kids by name, they have lunch with them. And that's a valuable tool, because a lot of our kids stay around and become adults here, and they raise their families here. So when you talk about true community policing, it starts there. I mean, people can say what they want, but DARE has been very successful for us, and our chief has made it a priority to continue that. Some of the other things that we do for community activities, a very successful one that I probably worked the last 10 or 12 years, along with the chief, his whole family, the lieutenant, and multiple other people, is our Halloween open house. We have plenty of our neighborhood volunteers that come in, and we get upwards of 700 or 800 people come through our department. And there's hands-on activities. The kids dress up in costumes. It's a great community relations. We have the back parking lot set up with our START vehicles. We have the motorcycle. We have our K9 here. And it's just a really nice way to interact with our public on a, one-on-one basis. And we can get down on there, with the kids, and it's a great time. And it keeps growing every year. I mean, every year we think, God, we can't do any more. And then the next year we're like, hey, we need to order another 100 donuts. So that's a big deal that we do. And another thing that we offer, along the lines of community, are car seat inspections. We have a lot of new young parents, people that don't know how to put car seats in. We have officers that are trained in car seats. It's a 30-minute process to put these car seats in properly. And we have officers that are specially trained. And not only do we do the inspections, but if somebody called us and said, hey, Brad, I don't have a car seat, we will get you a car seat, no charge. And that's a great service. And then when you come here, we'll put it in your car and make sure it's in there safely and that your child's safe. Our officers have always, for the last 20 years, Shop with the Cop has been, and again, this is all voluntary, Shop with the Cop. We always have all our officers that we can put, spare, sign up for that, and they're assigned a child. This last year in 2019, we did our own at the Walmart across in Ocamis. And I think we had about 10 or 12 officers volunteer, but we probably had 15 family members volunteer. And when I say volunteer, every child was served breakfast. They got to come in, we took them shopping, and every present was wrapped by the volunteers, and they took all their presents home wrapped. And that's something that we should be very proud of, and the chief and Officer Scatia and Officer Leroy, they helped set that up, and it was great. And I think we're going to continue that, for years to come. And so with that being said, I appreciate everybody taking their time out of tonight. If you have any questions, email me or call me, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thanks, Brad. I appreciate that. Is there anybody having that would like to ask a community policing question? If we have community policing questions, please raise your hand, or you can put it in the question and answer section, and we can answer that live. If not, we'll move on to the community input, and I'll start by covering some of the questions that were, oh, I see we have a hand. So if our moderator would unmute.
What's the Halloween plan this year?
So we don't necessarily we can't regulate the movement of people. With the COVID-19 crisis, highly suggest social distance. You have to maintain social distance. You can't have groups, large groups. We do enforce the governor's order on the COVID issues.
How about
So,
police force though, for at your headquarters?
Oh, we will not, unfortunately, we will not be having our Halloween open house this year. This has been really a rough year for us because National Night Out, we thought we'd be back to the point where we could have gatherings by October, and that does not look like that's going to happen. And we would just as soon err on the side of caution and not have large gatherings like that, or have, multiple people touring through the police department until we're confident that the COVID-19 issue has been resolved. So unfortunately, no Halloween open house this year. Thank you, Barbara. Any other questions about our community policing program or community? So there's one there that says, what does DARE stand for? Drug Awareness Resistance Education. Officer Scatia is here. The DARE program has changed quite a bit over the years. It used to be strictly about drugs, narcotics, alcohol, smoking, but what it really has turned to is they have what's called the DARE decision-making model. And the DARE decision-making model is really teaches kids how to assess a situation and go through a series of steps to make the best choice for them. So that is one of the programs that we utilize. We also, our school resource officers also utilize the TEAM program, which is a program that is put on by Michigan State Police, and it's a modular program. So if a teacher has a specific objective or topic they want to talk about, it could be alcohol, it could be safe use of computers and electronics. Those specific topics, the officers can come in and do a single topic subject instead of the 10 lesson program that the DARE program is. So they also have community resource or school resource officer training so that they are aware to give good advice on safety training and how to handle things in a school environment, where that's something that really in a police academy or an in-service training, you can't cover what they receive in that school, in that resource officer training.
Chief, we have a question from John Esser.
Oh, yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thanks. I'm just wondering, and I'm not sure if you ever did this in the past, but has there ever been, or would you consider, particularly given how many people are on bicycles these days and how much the bike paths and the use of them has been increased over the time in the last few years, but a lot more since the COVID thing. Have you considered, or is there a possibility of officers being on bikes, checking, using some of these trails and paths on bicycles, at least, obviously during the warmer season might be a little difficult in the winter. But is that something that the department has ever considered?
So we currently have 4 police bikes. Those bikes are, and racks that mount on the back of the patrol cars. Our community isn't as dense as some of the more urban areas. So it's difficult to have an officer out just on a bicycle, but the officers will take the bikes with them and work through neighborhoods, ride those trails. We actually have a police bicycle officer instructor. We sent somebody off to a training to be able to, because there are some tactics, mounting and dismounting that officers need to know how to do quickly. It's not just getting on a bicycle and riding around, but we do utilize it, John. It just hasn't been quite as much as of late. Like I said, we're at 36 officers and we're supposed to be right around 41. And so as shifts are a little lighter, people don't feel comfortable getting out on a bicycle in case there's a pressing emergency call where they have to get there quickly. When you have more officers on the road, it's not so concerning when one's on a bicycle. So that's where we're at with that right now. But we do have 4 police bicycles and we do utilize them, especially like during the fireworks and celebrate Meridian events. The larger events, we utilize them as well because they can get through crowds and into neighborhoods a lot more effectively.
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons I brought that up is just because I'm right on Okemos Road, and in between the bike path here and where the new sort of cross, what do you call it, bridge across that creek there, there's a lot more bicycle traffic. I haven't seen problems with it, but I was just curious because I hadn't seen any officers on bikes, but I do understand that staffing is clearly an issue here. So thank you, Chief Flaga.
Thanks, John. And John, thanks for being one of our neighborhood organizers and neighborhood watch leaders. One of the questions is how are community leaders selected and appointed and what training is provided to them? So really, when we have somebody who volunteers that wants to participate as one of our neighborhood leaders or our neighborhood watch captains, we're happy to have you. Some neighborhoods have more than one person that's assigned as a neighborhood leader. Their responsibilities are to come and be a liaison between their neighbors and the folks that are in their neighborhood and the police department, to share with us any concerns that your neighbors might have or situations that may pop up so that we're aware. One of the things that we've always noticed, and the folks that are neighborhood leaders out here, I'm like a broken record. When people call and say, well, or bring up something and say, well, I saw something, but I didn't want to bother the police with it. We want to be bothered. We want, the more we know, the better that we can provide that service. And hopefully if somebody sees something that just doesn't seem suspicious, we can look at that and be certain to address that issue and maybe share the information back with that leader that can then bring that back to the neighborhoods and make sure that they're satisfied with the resolution and that they understand why the thing that was suspicious actually happened. So if anybody is interested in volunteering, I would encourage you to send Assistant Chief Bach or myself or any of us an email, and we would be happy to get you on the program and have you come to our neighborhood leader meetings and be that liaison between your neighbors and our department. Larry asked the question, tell us your capabilities to address riots and violence that is taking place in many cities across the United States. Our officers do receive civil unrest training. We did assist the city of Lansing when they had some civil unrest and some protests. We've also participated in the celebratory events at Michigan State University as well. And we have to work well with our neighbors to be able to address any situations like that because the numbers of officers that we have. There are over 40,000 people in Meridian Township. If you look at the number of folks that we police as an organization, there's over 5,000 people in Williamstown Township and over 43,000 people in Meridian Township. That does not take into account those people that come to visit here. So if there was a reason or a civil unrest issue, we would rely on our neighbors, East Lansing, Michigan State University, Ingham County Sheriff's Office, the Williamston Police Department, and ask for their assistance. The civil unrest training that Michigan State University provides is second to none. With having a neighboring university, we utilize them for a lot of their training because they are just full with experts in many specific fields that we need to be proficient at. So that's how we would address that. Another one of our neighborhood leaders, Gus, says, thank you for a highly professional, informative presentation tonight. Is MTBD taking special precautions leading up to and during and beyond the November 3rd general election? We're working, we work with the state police MIAC. It's an intelligence gathering center to make sure that if there is something that we believe is going to come up or an issue that is going to present itself, that we're prepared for that. Our staffing levels, we'll have extra staff on. At this point, we have no anticipation of issues in Meridian Township on November 3rd. We will be prepared, though, if one does arise with the appropriate amount of staffing and working cooperatively with our neighbors. I hope that answered that for you guys. Mr. David Austin, how can we begin to understand the use of force problems that we see in other parts of the country? It's as if the Meridian Townships are actually on a different planet. Are there several likely factors to play out here? Well, I will share with you that the use of force issues that are across the United States, a lot of the things that we see, especially in regards to use of force, is the amount of training and experience an officer has. That's why our training program is so comprehensive. That's why our selection process is so rigorous. We do not want to put ourselves in the position that we do not have adequately trained and properly temperamented police officers. We're fortunate there's only 41 of us in this department. We're a department where everybody knows each other's names. You start moving on to larger departments in large cities, and there are officers that have never met each other. There are officers that don't know, you could run past somebody in a street and not know that they work for a police organization because of the size of the organization. That when you start stretching out police departments that large, it becomes difficult to see or to pay attention to what everybody's doing. Lieutenant Grillo talked about our early warning system. That is something that we have in place to help us identify any issues before they become true issues and take corrective action. Those are the components, I think, that are probably the most important for an effective law enforcement agency to not have some of these problems that we see throughout the country. There's legislation out there right now that's being put in place in regards to tracking officers that have behavior problems at other agencies and hop from one agency or one organization to another. And so that you have problems in city A and you move to city B, that information travels with you so that the organization understands what they're getting when they hire a new person. So those are some of the things. Lieutenant Grill also said it's not like people can't make mistakes. Mistakes have grave consequences when they do happen, especially in law enforcement, the use of force area. That is why we spend so much time training on it. But I think there's a direct correlation with the amount of time spent training officers and the opportunity for a mistake or a misapplication of force to happen. I really do want to thank the attendants today. I appreciate our neighborhood leaders, the support we get from the community. The township board is also very supportive of our organization. If you have questions or concerns, Barb has a question. I understand the de-escalation training, and thank you. Do our officers have any further training in just conflict resolution? So yes, we do conflict resolution training. That is part of the de-escalation training, but there's also a piece for just how to address folks that are in a situation that they can't handle at the time and try to help them mitigate their circumstances. So really, that's the crux of law enforcement is conflict resolution and mediation. You could ask any police officer who works here, we do more mediation and resolution of conflict than we do arresting or prosecuting criminal charges here. Our goal is not to get as many arrest warrants as possible or write as many as tickets as possible. It's to gain compliance and to make sure that everybody's safe and living in a safe manner. So that's how that works. Again, I want to thank that, we have great support from the township board. If people have concerns and questions, we are open to listening to those. If you're not comfortable doing it in a public forum and you want to have a one-on-one conversation with myself, I'm always open to that. That's what I do. And with that, I will take any other questions from the public. And if not, I think that, I have one more. There will be, one of the questions is will there be a transcript? This presentation has been recorded and will be posted on the township website. Home TV also simulcast broadcast this. Do we have social interaction training or the T3 program? We don't have specifically the T3 program, but we do have, we have training on, they call it impartial policing. How do you approach somebody? How do you be conscious of how you speak with people, that there are, because of either cultural or the way you were brought up or the environment in which you grew up in can affect the way that your social interaction or things that you find offensive. So our officers go through training to make sure that they are sensitive to people's interactions and how they speak to the public. So question is what is your complaint process and is there any civilian oversight? So our complaint process, you can file there's several ways to file a complaint. You can file that complaint either electronically, you can send an email. If somebody sends an email with a concern, even if it's anonymous, we assign it for an investigation. Depending on the seriousness of the investigation, if it was something that involves criminality or very serious, we would most likely ask for an outside agency to conduct the investigation. We keep the citizen that complained, if we know who it is, we keep that person informed of the status of the investigation and then the outcome of the investigation, what the findings were of the investigation, and if there was any actions taken. If they are unsatisfied with the results of that investigation, then there's the ability to contact the township manager, and the township manager, we've actually had people come to public comment. It's been some years, but they have voiced concerns to the township board. We've also had investigations that were conducted by outside civilian private investigators at the request of the complainant. So that's very rare, and it depends on the seriousness of the situation. But typically, we will walk the complainant or the person that has made the complaint through what process and findings we've had, and we've been very fortunate in being able to resolve our complaints in that manner. Larry asks, have we given out any tickets to anyone for not complying with the mask mandate? So we have not given out citations. The one thing that we've focused on is compliance. We have responded and had to issue cease and desist orders that were issued by the Ingham County Prosecuting Attorney's Office for people violating the governor's orders. And we have I believe we've sought charges in one instance for non-compliance with the governor's order. I want to also say we issued citations to a fitness center that was non-compliant with the governor's order. I think we issued 2 citations in that case. I had a question if I would speak to the topic of the many different road diets that are in the township now. Several of the townships have received road diets. If you know, Lake Lansing Road is now, Central Park Drive is another. My experience with road diets in the 25 years I've been here is when they are put in place, the dedicated left-hand turn lane that is put in place of the 2 lanes eastbound, 2 lanes westbound, or the 2 travel lanes has reduced the amount of rear end accidents. Working with the road commission, you can statistically look at that. Many years ago when I first came here, Hazlitt Road was the first road that I can recall that had a road diet east of Marsh Road. And then now down on Jolly Road, which is going to assist with the entrance into the Okemos High School and student parkings in the morning, the student lot and students arriving in school when they're doing in-person instruction. There's quite a traffic backup, and they've put a dedicated right-hand turn lane on Jolly Road with a dedicated through lane. I think that's going to assist in traffic safety issues. Time's going to tell, but what we've seen through statistics is that when a road diet is put in place, and the importance is that the road meets the criteria with the number of vehicles traveling on it. You try to put a road diet in place with a road that has too much vehicular traffic, it's not successful. But our experience is working with the engineers at the Ingham County Roads Department is that road diets have been successful for us and do reduce the number of traffic crashes. All right. Well, I would like to thank everybody who attended tonight's meeting. I also like to thank the questions that were posed. If you have any other questions, remember, we're always available. And with that, unless anyone else has anything they'd like to say, I think we will sign off for this evening. As far as input goes, if the community finds this as valuable, I wouldn't mind a little email or a note that lets me know that we can do this again and bring information forward and have this community input, community forum for people to voice questions and concerns again in the not too distant future. Mr. Supervisor, did you have any comments that you wanted to make tonight?
No, I want to thank you and all of those who assisted you in presenting this. It was I thought, a very good, useful program for all of us, me as well as all the other citizens of Meridian, and appreciate also all the hard work and dedication of our police force. We have outstanding people at all levels, and we truly appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Treasurer?
I'd just like to reiterate what the supervisor said. Thank you for the effort you put into this. I know this took many hours of preparation by you and your staff. The transparency that is there is impressive, and please keep doing that. And hopefully we can do these community policing sessions on a regular basis. But thank you again for the time that you all put into this.
Thank you, sir. I see Miss Jackson's on the line. I don't know if she has audio or not, but if Miss Jackson, if you wanted to, if our moderator could promote Miss Trustee Jackson. And if she, I'm not sure if Trustee Jackson had any comments that she'd like to make.
Am I on?
You are, ma'am.
Okay. I would like also to thank you for this information session. I have learned something, some things I didn't know before. Even as a D and a graduate twice of the Citizens Academy, there is a lot of information that you have provided. I think the community will appreciate having learned and heard, and I hope that they will assist you. We will all continue to assist
Well, I know Miss Jackson, it was not from her home, so I see that she popped off, but I appreciate the feedback, and I know that we'll get more. Unfortunately, she's having some technical difficulty. With that, I want to thank our attendees. I want to thank the support of the Township Board. I want to thank the Township Manager, Frank Walsh. He couldn't be here because he had another community engagement that he was working with tonight, and we do appreciate his support as well. So,
Sir, we have
staff
one more
that-
question before we log off from Mr. David
Okay.
Austin.
Okay.
David, if you unmute yourself, you should be able to talk. Okay, maybe that was accidental.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone. I know that the staff put a lot of time in on their pieces, and I appreciate this presentation, and I appreciate every one of them, as well as the citizens who take time out of their day on a beautiful evening like this to come and participate in this forum. I hope to see you again in the future. And to all our neighborhood leaders, thank you so much for being a part of the program and supporting us and working together with us to make the township a better place.